guys, today I'm filming a first impression and follow-up on the Tarte Shape Tape Matte Foundation. This was recently a hot buy during the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty, so I was able to pick this up for 40% off. This product is exclusive to Ulta Beauty and the Tarte website. It retails for $39 normally, but I was able to get it during the 21 Days of Beauty for only $23, which is a really good price. This foundation comes in 25 shades. They did add a few more since the original release, but I do hope that they will continue to expand the shade range on this foundation. I'm hoping they do it on pure principle, but part of me is wondering if they're going to extend the shade range, considering that this foundation does not seem to be selling well due to the controversy in the shade selection when it first came out. A lot of people boycotted Tarte. A lot of people specifically were not trying to buy this foundation or the hydrating version, so I hope they extend the shade range, but again, depending on sales, I'm not sure if they are going to. And my shade is 12S Fair Sand, which appears to be a fair foundation with a yellow undertone, but we will see on the skin. But I definitely can see here that there are a lot of foundations in the medium range, but not very many deep colors and not very many fair colors. There's only one shade lighter than this one. So to read you the claims, it says, "Kiss the pretty filter goodbye thanks to Double Duty Beauty Shape Tape Matte Foundation, a vegan oil-free foundation that feels weightless on the skin while providing a full coverage airbrush matte finish." And it says it makes skin look matte but never flat all day with a comfy weightless wear. The benefits say flawless full coverage with the airbrush matte finish, absorbs oil and shine, helps refine pores, won't flake or cake, and vitamin E helps to nourish. So I have super oily skin and I do have quite a bit of acne right now, and I definitely prefer a full coverage foundation. So we will see how well this holds up on my skin. The reviews on the Ulta website are about 3 out of 5 stars, which is not very good. I don't have the highest expectations for this because from what I've heard so far, a lot of people weren't loving this formula, but I will definitely let you guys know my thoughts, and I want to review this foundation formula for what it is so I can let you know whether this is a good product or not. So as with all of my first impression videos, I will be applying the foundation on one side with the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge and on the other side with my Sigma F80 flat top kabuki brush. So the packaging for this foundation does come in a frosted glass bottle. I really like the little design on the cap here, and this does have that really large doe foot applicator style packaging, the same one that they have in their concealer but much larger. I don't mind this. Some people get kind of grossed out by this. If you're applying it on clean skin, you're only applying it on yourself. I don't see it as that big of a deal, and especially when like that's how we apply concealer and that's not gross for some reason. So anyway, this doesn't bother me at all. So I am going to start by just dotting this on one side of my face, and I'm not sure how much to apply, so we'll start out with that much. I do like that I don't have to get messy and put this in the back of my hand or on a palette. It makes it easier for on the go if you have a good shade match and you don't really have to mix with something else, so it's very convenient in that way. So then taking the Real Techniques sponge, this might even be a little light for me, but that's all right. Here's one layer of foundation applied with a sponge versus no foundation. So as you can see, it did even out my skin tone a little bit overall. You can't see as much redness, but a lot is still showing through. So now let's see with the brush. Now I have it dotted all over this side of my face, going in with my Sigma F80 flat top kabuki. I'm just gonna try to press it into my skin to help get the most coverage. And this looks like it's blending out a little bit easier with the brush. And that does make sense for the fact that this is more of a matte finish. Sometimes it seems like a brush just works better. So here's one layer of foundation applied with a sponge versus one layer of foundation applied with a brush. Right here we can definitely see that the brush side did give more coverage. I am able to still see quite a bit of redness over here on the sponge side. Also, this side my face looks lighter. I don't know if that's because this side has dried down or because this side has more coverage that you can see the shade a little bit more and that it's a little light. So now I'm going to see if this foundation is buildable 2 layers with a sponge, 2 layers with a brush. So here is 2 layers of foundation applied with a sponge versus 1 layer of foundation applied with the brush. You can definitely see it was buildable with a sponge. It did give some really nice coverage as well, and it was almost easier to blend out the second time, and maybe that's just with applying more product, it looks more opaque on the skin, and it was really easy to blend out with a sponge, but I did want to work quickly since it is a matte foundation. So now for the brush side. So here's 2 layers of foundation applied with a sponge versus 2 layers of foundation applied with a brush. This side is looking lighter again, so I really think that this does dry down a little bit. It's not necessarily that it's oxidizing, it's just drying down more of its true color, but the coverage was also buildable with a brush. I don't see any brush strokes or any patchiness. So coverage wise, I would say that we do have a solid medium coverage on the sponge side and a high medium on the brush side. I don't usually prefer a brush, but I do think I like the way that the brush worked with the formula of this foundation and the amount of coverage that it gave. So now I'm going to apply my under eye concealer and setting powder, and I'm also going to set my face with a translucent loose setting powder that is not going to give me any color coverage or mattify me. Right now it is 9 a.m. I will check back in with you guys in about 4 hours to show you how this is wearing. Hey guys, it is about 12:30 p.m. and I am back for my first check-in. So it has only been 3.5 hours at this point, but Justin and I are about to leave the house for a while, so I'm not exactly sure my next update will be, but of course I'm going to show you how it's looking so far and let you know how the rest of my makeup applied on top of this. So right after I applied this foundation, I went and made Justin breakfast, and then I came back to the rest of my makeup, and maybe that was about like 20 minutes or so, and I applied concealer under my eyes, and then just because out of habit I went and applied concealer down the center of my face, and I was like, oh shoot, and then I went to blend it out and it completely patched off the foundation down the center of my face. It was not blending out well, and that's because when I would touch my skin, the foundation was basically set already, so that's why that was happening. So I was like, oh crap, well that's not fair, I wasn't supposed to do that anyway. So I did end up wiping off all of my foundation, and then I reapplied it the same way as before, 2 layers with a sponge, 2 layers with a brush, and using no primer, and then I immediately went in and applied my concealer, and it worked so much better. I didn't have any patchiness whatsoever. It wasn't lifting off the foundation. So because this is a self-setting foundation, I recommend really going in right away after your foundation to apply your concealer and blend out. That's normally what I do, so I don't think it would be an issue for me, and it's not like I have to like rush, but definitely don't take your time in between steps. And as far as how this foundation looks on my skin, it did oxidize. I said that it must have dried down to its more true color, but when I look at the fresh product in the tube, it is lighter than what I see on my face right now, but the shade in the bottle is a little light for me, and the shade it dries down to matches me so much better. So when I looked up close in the mirror, I felt like this was actually more of a full coverage foundation than the medium I had said initially, and when I was looking up close, I was able to see that it did really cover up almost all of my redness and freckles, so it is certainly a full coverage foundation. I would say sponge side is high medium, brush side is full coverage. And I did also notice that this is settling really badly into my forehead wrinkles almost immediately. It emphasized all of those. It has also settled and is emphasizing these lines right here, and I don't typically have that problem. It also is settling and looking a little weird in my nose creases. Right now, I don't know what it is. I have this really dry patch of skin. I think that I may have over exfoliated my skin or something, but of course I was picking at it earlier this morning, and I waited a little bit, then I did my video, so it isn't just like dry skin under here, so it didn't cover evenly, but it definitely does look really dry and patchy in this area. So if you have really dry patches on your skin, I definitely think that this would draw attention to it. Overall, my skin looks really matte, which I enjoy. I don't think that it actually really emphasized my pores, which is nice, and it's kind of surprising to me. Usually if it emphasizes lines, it also emphasizes pores for me, but I think my pores look pretty smooth considering that I'm not using any pore blurring primers underneath of this foundation. So far, I actually really like this. It doesn't feel heavy on the skin. I think it looks really nice. Coverage is good, color is good. I'm feeling really matte. So I'm really happy with how this is wearing for now and how it is looking, but I will check back in with you guys in a few hours to give you my next update. Hey guys, it is 9 p.m. and I am here for my final check-in. I'm sorry I didn't have a check-in between 3.5 hours and 12 hours, but we were gone for quite some time, and when we got back, it was around 6:30, and I figured I might as well just wait until 9 to show you a full 12 hours of wear. And I haven't actually done this before, but with our new setup where we moved to, I'm able to, and I look a little bit of a mess right now, but truly it's been much worse. So basically I am very oily throughout my entire T-zone. I think you can see I'm super shiny in my forehead, between my brows, nose, chin, the inner part of my cheeks. The foundation has also worn away on the tip of my nose as well as this part of my chin, which is something I tend to expect. I usually rub my nose, rest my head in my hand, so that makes sense to me. I told you I had this one dry patch of skin on my chin, and of course the foundation really clung to that. It really emphasized that. Also, it has started to wear away here, so it looks really dry and patchy here as well, but it's not too terrible. So this is probably a mixture of being dry and me resting my head in my hand that has just slowly been wearing away over time. It has caked and separated around my nostril even more than earlier in the day. I'm obviously really oily here as well. Before, I told you guys I didn't really feel like it was emphasizing my pores very much, and I do still agree with that. But at this point, it's like where the oil is coming through, the product is really settling into my pores now, and they're a little bit more noticeable, or at least it looks like I have more texture in this area. It does look like I've got some texture or pores right there on my forehead as well, but honestly overall I think that this is looking pretty good. It has not oxidized any more than it did initially, so I figure on camera here we can blot and repowder to see how that looks. Of course, I would usually blot much earlier in the day, so sometimes with foundations, and I'll test this tomorrow, if I wait too long to blot, it's almost too late and you can't really fix with a little matte powder because it's already separated in some areas. So we will see what it looks like now. So taking this little piece of toilet paper, I'm just gonna press it into my skin. I'm not wiping, I'm just pressing. So I think even just that helped mattify me a little bit. It may have removed a little bit more foundation on my nose and on the sides of my nose, but not really, so that's good. I'm not sure if you can see, but I do have some transfer on the tissue. All of my foundations transfer on me. So I'm going to take my trusty Rimmel Stay Matte powder in the translucent shade. So now my skin does look matte overall, and it does look more matte in those areas, but it is still noticeable the areas where my makeup has started to break up or wear away. Hey guys, I am back to film the follow-up on the Tarte Shape Tape Matte Foundation. So I'll be inserting this product into my everyday routine to get a more accurate picture of how this might typically work for me. So I will be applying this with primers, and I will be setting my face with a more mattifying powder. And for primer today, all over, I will be using the Ordinary High Adherence Silicone Primer, and then to fill in my pores, I'll be using the Cover FX Blurring Primer. So this Ordinary one is really nice because it doesn't really give a lot of glow or mattify. It just makes my skin feel really smooth, and I think it will help this foundation glide on easier. Then for the Cover FX Blurring Primer, I'm just going to apply this in the areas where I have large pores, which for me would be right here on the sides of my nose, this inner part of my cheek. So I press in to the pores and then smooth towards the outside of my face. Now going in with the foundation, I'm just going to dot it on my skin. So I decided I am going to be mainly applying it with my Sigma F80 flat top kabuki brush, but then I will go over top with a damp beauty sponge just to help make it look a little bit more seamless. But I think this brush just helps give even better coverage. And I do think it is gliding onto the skin and blending out a little easier with that primer, which I appreciate. So here's what it looks like with one layer applied all over. Right now I think we have light medium coverage. It's covered a lot of my redness, evened out my skin tone overall, but I can still see some redness and some freckling, so I'm going to go over with one more layer. So here is what the foundation looks like with 2 layers applied all over. I do think we have a really high medium coverage, leaning towards full, but I can still see a little bit of redness and freckling, but I think it gives really good coverage while still looking a little bit on the natural side. So I'm going to apply my under eye concealer and setting powder off camera and be back to show you my face setting powder. So I have done the under eye. I feel like my under eye is looking a little bright, my skin overall is looking a little pale, but I'm hoping that the powder will help. And then of course when I put on the rest of my makeup. So for my face powder today, I'm just going to be using the Laura Mercier translucent loose setting powder, which I usually use for under my eyes, but I do think that this does mattify pretty well, so it would be nice to set my entire face. And I am going to apply that with a damp beauty sponge. So that was pretty easy. My face feels all set. Right now it is almost 10 a.m. so I'm gonna check back in with you guys in about 6 hours to give you my full thoughts on this foundation so far, and then at the end of the month in my monthly favorites and product updates I will give you my full thoughts. So I will see you guys in about 6 hours. Hey guys, it is 4 p.m. so I've had this foundation on for 6 hours, which is about halfway throughout my day, so I wanted to give you my final thoughts on it. Please forgive my eyeshadow. I am using the Emily Noel Makeup Revolution Emily Edit the Once palette, and this color combo is a bit of a mess. That really beautiful matte teal corduroy shade is not good and ruined the look a bit. I love the shade on the lid, but like, no. So I just kind of stopped. I'm going to be removing my makeup after this video because I'm not happy with the way that it looks. But anyway, for the foundation, I'm not happy with the way that this looks either. Now, it is not the worst, but it is not great. So I have some really intense dry patches on my chin right now, and I'm pretty sure it's because I over exfoliated with a chemical exfoliant, and I really think it like burned my skin or something. So that's what I've got going on here, and it looks really dry and patchy in this area. It's also worn off on my chin. We were out to brunch earlier and we were sitting and talking for a while, so I was sitting like this, completely rubbed off. My chin looks very patchy in my other dry spot. Then it looks really bad in the areas where I'm oily, which is between my brows and the sides of my nose. It has pulled up in the corners around my nostrils. My nose looks really patchy. It has started to get very oily and separate a bit between my brows and doesn't look very good there. And I think maybe the powder made this oxidize a bit because now it is too dark for me. So I do realize now that it isn't just a shade range that made people give this a pretty poor review on the Ulta website. It's truly the formula of this foundation is not that great. So I'm going to be returning this foundation. Now, it isn't awful, but it also isn't great. And I have quite a few foundations in my collection right now. I'm always wanting to try new things, to try to find the latest and greatest, best foundation for my oily skin to give me full coverage, but I just wasn't in love with this one, and I don't want to hold on to products that are just fine. So I will be returning this foundation. I'm glad I was able to try it out, but it is just not for me. I would love to know your experience if you guys have tried this foundation in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye guys.